Blood at dawn. What did Columbus unleash on a world ready to burn? They didn't sail to a silent shore. They plunged into a maelstrom of war and whispers. October 12, 1492. The Santa Maria lurches through a crimson dawn, its timbers creaking as it grinds onto the sands of an island soon christened Hispaniola. Christopher Columbus, a gaunt figure with wild eyes and a voice hoarse from shouting over storms, leaps ashore, boots sinking into the surf. He clutches a tattered banner, thrusts it into the earth, and bellows Spain's claim to the windland, sea, and every soul within reach, all for Ferdinand and Isabella. But this isn't a blank canvas bowing to its master. It's a powder keg, primed and hissing. The Taino peer from the shadows, their bronze skin glistening with sweat, hands twitching toward hidden blades. Their villages buzz with life fishermen hauling nets, women weaving palm fronds, but beneath it lies a current of tension, a land trembling with secrets and strife. Beyond the trees, the Americas stretch vast and untamed empires rising, alliances fracturing, and battlefields scarred by feuds older than the stars. Columbus didn't uncover a new world. He kicked a hornet's nest buzzing with bloodlust and betrayal. Brace yourself for a tale that rips through the fog of legend, hurling you into a storm of clashing steel, shattered oaths, and a legacy so dark, so gripping, it'll haunt you long after the last word fades. Rewind the centuries, far before those sails slashed the horizon. The Americas weren't a tranquil dream, they were a crucible, forged in the fires of relentless war. In the Northeast, the Iroquois and Huron weren't just foes, they were locked in a vendetta that turned rivers red. Picture the 1600s, an Iroquois warband, faces smeared with ash, creeps through the twilight fog. They strike a Huron village like lightning roofs blaze. Warriors fall with skulls split wide, and the air thickens with shrieks. Captives are herded back, lashed to poles. Fires roar as flesh chars, their screams a brutal anthem to Iroquois supremacy. By 1656, they'd set their sights on the Erie tribe, a campaign of extinction. War drums thundered as settlements burned. Hundreds crumpled under hatchets, and scalps dangled like grim pendants. The Erie didn't just fade, they were scrubbed from existence, their names lost to the wind. This wasn't a quarrel, it was a savage bid for power, etched in fur and fear. Swing south to the sun-scorched southwest, where the Apache moved like wraiths through the dunes. They'd hit the Pima and Tohono O'odham at first light, a whirlwind of hooves and steel, leaving devastation in their dust. A Pima lookout might have hissed, their shadows death without sound, as flames devoured his kin's huts. Horses vanished, children stolen, warriors gutted. It was a dance of survival, carved into the desert's bones. Up on the Great Plains, the Lakota Sioux stormed in during the 1700s, toppling the Omaha and Pawnee with chilling precision. One dusk in 1750, a Lakota ambush catches a Pawnee band off guard. Arrows rain, blades bite, dozens drop, scalps hoisted as war cries split the sky. No mercy, only the dead, a chief roars, driving his spear through a captive's heart. By 1800, they'd clawed an empire from Minnesota to Montana, every inch a monument to their fallen rivals. Now ride to the southern plains, where the Comanche reigned as harbingers of dread. From the 1700s to the 1800s, they turned Texas into a killing ground, their raids a symphony of terror. The Tonkawa and Lipan Apache faced their wrath, villages torched, families ripped apart for slavery or ransom, men staked out, scalped, and left to writhe under a merciless sun. A Spanish trader in 1770s, Texas scrawled in a trembling hand. They dragged the chief away. Howling with glee, said the crows would feast by dusk. By 1830, they'd shoved the Apache south, leaving Mexico staggering under the onslaught. Thousands fell or faded into chains, their fates a chilling whisper in Comanche lore, resist, and you're nothing. The earth itself bears witness. At Crow Creek, South Dakota, in the 1320s, over 150 years before Columbus, a massacre stained the dawn. Archaeologists unearthed 486 souls in a mass grave, skulls shattered, hands hacked off, children pierced by arrows through their spines. No one walked away. The attackers, likely early Sioux, hungered for the land and its corn. They seized it, leaving a slaughter as their seal. This wasn't a fluke, it was the heartbeat of tribal war, pulsing long before European eyes turned west. But not every tale was drenched in blood. The Hopi clung to their mesas, coaxing corn from the dust, their days a quiet hymn to the sun. The Iroquois forged a confederacy, not for harmony, but to crush their enemies as one. The Comanche didn't barter, they conquered. The Sioux didn't share, they claimed. Peace flickered in corners, but war roared across the land, driven by survival, vengeance, and the raw hunger of nations unbound. When Columbus's ships grazed the shore, he didn't spark violence, he dove into a storm already raging. His brutality wasn't the first thunder, it was a bolt in a sky crackling with fury. And what a bolt he struck. Columbus hit Hispaniola like a plague. His ambitions, a fevered blend of greed and divine right, fueled by a crown ravenous for glory. In May 1493, Pope Alexander VI Intercaetera Bull crashed down a celestial warrant granting Spain dominion over any pagan lands west of a line 100 leagues from the Azores. Spread the faith, yes, but line the vaults first. Columbus seized that decree like a warlord's mantle. He didn't see the Taino as kin, he saw cattle. By 1494, he'd unleashed the encomienda system, a sinister bargain where Spanish settlers and comenderos claimed land and the souls on it. Protect and convert. A hollow vow. In truth, it was bondage cloaked in crosses. Every Taino, over 14, owed tribute gold dust, measured in hawk's bells, due every 3 months. Fall short, the penalty was swift and savage. He threw up Fort Santo Tomas, La Navidad bristling with cannons and cruelty, bastions to bend the land to his will. When the Taino fought back, he didn't blink. By 1496, his reign was so ferocious that even Spain shuddered. He's a butcher, draining us dry. A hollow-eyed colonist, scratched in a desperate note home, as settlers starved and natives perished under his yoke. In 1500, Francisco de Bobadilla, a royal hunter, sailed in to stalk the truth. He found a hellscape colonies collapsing, graves spilling over, a dominion in ruins. Carlos Martinez Shaw cuts it sharp. He didn't plan genocide, but his sails unleashed hell, dragged back to Spain to face charges of savagery, too wild, even for an empire forged in conquest. But the monster he'd birthed kept clawing, its hunger insatiable. The horror was a plunge into the abyss. Bartolomé de las Casas, a priest who sailed with Columbus, etched nightmares into his pages. Spanish soldiers turned slaughter into revelry. They'd tear Taino babes from their mothers, hurl them into rivers, and bet on the carnage. 50 Real says, "I sink 5." One might have bellowed, laughing as infants vanished beneath the waves. Men who couldn't muster gold-faced machetes hands, sliced off, left swaying by sinew as they bled out in the dirt. Las Casas saw 20 Taino, lashed to stakes in 1495, throats cut for hoarding scraps. Their bodies tossed to the hounds. Women endured worse rape, was a soldier's spoil. A captain once kicked down a hut's wall, pinned a Taino woman to the ground, and hissed, "You're mine, tell your clan to break," as her husband wailed, powerless. Gold was their altar, and natives their sacrifice. In 1495, Columbus launched a slave raid that snared 1,500 Arawak men, women, children chained and sorted like beasts. The strongest 500 were crammed into ships for Spain's markets. 200 died en route, choking in the hold or starving on rancid crumbs. More to reap, a sailor might have sneered, heaving a body overboard. Back on Hispaniola, the rest were herded to mines dark, suffocating tombs where whips flayed skin and bones buckled. Las Casas watched, hundreds bent double, digging until they dropped, fed husks or silence. One mine lost 60 in a month, their corpses piled like refuse. By 1499, clans dissolved, the Taino's 250,000 souls plummeting toward oblivion. Then came the silent assassin, disease. Smallpox slithered ashore with Columbus's crew in 1493, a specter that slew without steel. Measles and flu followed, shredding a people with no armor. Fever spiked, sores festered, lungs drowned in muck. A Taino healer might have knelt by a dying girl, muttering, "The spirits are deaf," as pustules consumed her. On Hispaniola, the collapse was biblical: 250,000 in 1492, 14,000 by 1517, a few thousand by 1540. Lineages vanished, 80–90% erased in decades. Across the sea, the Aztecs faced the same doom. Hernan Cortés stormed Tenochtitlan in 1519, 25 million strong. Smallpox rode with him, unleashed by an infected slave. By 1521, half were gone, streets choked with the dead. By 1600, only 2 to 3 million clung on. Bernal Diaz gagged at the sight. "We trod on corpses, the air was death itself." Columbus didn't brew the plagues, but he didn't stem them. His system encomienda, tribute, terror, was a death engine. Gold streaming to Spain as natives paid in blood. Babies smashed, hands severed. Villages razed, his men reveled in it. Spain blessed it, fattened on it. Las Casas tallied 3 million lost across the Caribbean. By 1550, half by blades, half by germs. Intentional? Not quite. Columbus didn't sow smallpox, but he built the cage it ravaged. His echo isn't just blood on the rocks, it's a people unmade, half by steel, half by an unseen scythe. History doesn't pardon, it peels back the skin. But zoom out, and Columbus isn't the sole beast in this brutal ballet. Violence wasn't his spawn, it was humanity's pulse, throbbing through time. In 1066, William the Conqueror carved England, hacking Anglo-Saxons, torching homes, stacking bodies for his throne, thousands dead in months. Genghis Khan roared through Asia in the 1200s, flattening Khwarezm, 40 million slain. Nations erased under Mongol hooves. Rome crushed Carthage in 146 BC, enslaving 50,000, salting the ruins. The Aztecs ripped out 20,000 hearts in 1487, priests chanting, "The sun craves its due," as blood slicked Tenochtitlan stones. Columbus didn't craft the game, he played it, fierce and unforgiving, on a new stage. Historians claw through the debris. Carlos Martinez Shaw cuts it sharp. He didn't plan genocide, but his sails unleashed hell. No blueprint, just greed that spiraled into ruin. Steve Hackle digs deeper. Don't heap it all on him, but he sparked centuries of plunder. His men slashed, enslaved, and let plagues run wild. Spain turned it into wealth. Yet the tune's ancient power praise always has. Norman steel, Mongol arrows, Roman spears, all crushed to rise. Columbus just sailed it west. Here's the sting. He wasn't the only one swinging. Natives fought their own wars: Iroquois raids, Comanche stakes, Sioux ambushes. Crow Creek's 486. Dead. Scream it. Bloodshed was no import. Both sides drew blood, took scalps, seized ground. Columbus's hands dripped slavery, mutilation. Millions gone, but the Taino weren't saints, and their kin weren't meek. History's no tidy morality play. It's a brawl, raw and knotted. So what's the reckoning? Columbus unleashed a tempest, systematic, ruthless, a death knell that shook continents. No scrubbing that clean. But he didn't birth violence. He joined a scream already echoing. Native tribes clashed hard Iroquois scalps. Comanche terror, Sioux conquests long before his sails loomed. Neither side's pure, both lived fierce. The past isn't a fable, it's a sprawling, jagged heap of human nature, dripping with guts, glory, and gore. To face it, you've got to see it all. The invader's blade, the locals' spears, the whole damn inferno. Columbus wasn't the only hand on the hilt, he was one history snared, mid-thrust. Thirsty for more? Histories and native tales serves it raw, no gloss. Just the unfiltered sprawl of the past, daring you to plunge in. The tale's bigger than one man, and it's still clawing at the dark.